My name is Damandeep and I represent the Carbon Disclosure Project, the only NGO in this room. That's right, Vishal, you're not an NGO, right? You're a consultant, he's a consultant, they're all out to take your money from you. You know, we are an NGO, and I'm basically actually here to tell you that according to the government of India, you actually don't need to do anything. Okay? You don't need to do anything till at least 2020. And maybe even beyond that, you don't know. And how it's going to hit you is then, then it's all your fault and you'll have to look out for yourself. Because what they decided in Durban is that they will continue discussing about what to do on climate change, what caps to and what emissions to propose for countries and for companies. They will continue to discuss this in 2015 when they will come up with the target on what they want to do post 2020. So it was a very interesting situation in which Jayanti Natarajan, who's a lawyer, Connie Hedegaard, who's the head of EU delegation, who's also a lawyer, they came to an agreement and they both went back to the respective governments and said, we've got what we wanted. The interesting part of it was the US negotiator Todd Stern also went back and said, we got what we wanted. So these are three lawyers talking and discussing, coming to an agreement saying they've got what they wanted. So the issue really is, and what is decided is till 2020, nobody needs to do anything. It's a very interesting fact that because 2 weeks ago there was actually a news item that had the US signed up to the Kyoto Protocol and taken targets, they would have met the targets. So here is a government that did not sign up to Kyoto Protocol, but had they taken the 5% reduction target over what their emissions were in 1990, they would have met the targets primarily because the companies met the targets and reduced their emissions. So what I'm trying to do is, in all this mumbo jumbo, trying to say that you guys, you companies, you are the true warriors in this fight against climate change. Now, you can talk about emissions, you can talk about a whole lot of other things and so on. The bottom line is that, climate change is going to hit you, and it hits countries and nations in various ways. You don't know what happens. We had the world's biggest blackout about a month ago, right? Was that climate change? Was that actually water related? We can discuss that later and we can come back to that. I mean, Katrina has been causing tremendous devastation, not just in Bombay with Salman and Shah Rukh and all that, but in 2005, she visited as a hurricane in New Orleans. And there was a devastation that somebody estimates of the order of $200 billion. Now somebody has got to pay for that. The insurance companies, Lloyds and all, are not going to go bankrupt paying for that. So they are factoring that into their emission, their premium calculations, which they're asking companies to pay. And we are, so this is where we come in. We are a very small NGO that punches considerably above its weight, because we realized a long time ago that all these, even though the governments, their horizon is for the next elections, they won't agree on these issues, but industrialists, people who are setting up factories, setting up power plants, people who are financing those, the insurers, the bankers, they want to see these things go beyond 5-10 years. They are making an investment for 80, 100 years. So they want to know what strength do they need to build something else? What, if they're building a new power plant, how much cement do they need to use? How much steel do they need to use? So we started talking to the investors. And this is what we do, and we've come up with this questionnaire that actually goes out to companies. And before it goes out to companies, our model was we get the world's top investors to sign up on it. So before our questionnaire actually goes to, and our approach till about 2006 was only to go to the top listed companies. And, we go to, and we've been called as the most powerful green NGO you've never heard of. Well, now you have heard of us. And this year we also got the Zayed Future Energy Award in Doha. So, and this is the model that we work on, and what I was describing is that we sit in the middle. We are a small NGO. Before we send out a questionnaire, we get these investors to sign off on it, so that we're saying that you're not responding to a small NGO, you're responding to actually these investors who want this information on climate change. And the questionnaire is based on the greenhouse gas protocol of the World Resources Institute. And these are some of the top luminaries who've commented on our questionnaire. And my favorite quote is from Christiana Figueres, who's the executive secretary of UNFCCC, and she likens our questionnaire to an X-ray of what an X-ray means to a medical practitioner. It tells him where the fault lines lie in a patient and how they can be corrected. So, and this is how, we've gone through the years for getting the different investors to sign up and so on. I won't, bore you with these details, but it's essentially what we're trying to do is that these guys are interested in now this bit of information. When investors want to put money into a company, and in this model, if you see again, if you can, instead of signatory investors, you can actually also put your buyers, your supply chain, the buyers and people who are buying from you. So these people are interested in that information because that is one of the criteria. That's not the sole criteria, but increasingly an important criteria in which they're investing in a company. And and then when you give us the data, CDP actually then what it did was with this questionnaire, it is an online response system. It's a questionnaire. It's about 16 pages. For the supply chain members, it's smaller. It then goes. It goes and it's shared. We believe in total and full disclosure. So everybody who gives us data, it's made public, unless you say you don't want to make it public. Then we keep it hidden. And then it only goes to the investors, or if you are been written to on behalf of one of your buyers, then it goes to them. And then the data, it comes to us, and it's provided on the market indices. It goes to investor advisories. It goes to universities, whoever's using those data. This is a snapshot on how we work. The data is also available on Bloomberg Terminal, Google Finance Terminal. And we also rate and rank companies. And last year, over 3,700 companies responded to our questionnaire. We are active in 72 different countries. Besides carbon, we also work on water disclosure, on supply chain, and also on cities. So citywide, we are asking cities to disclose. This is a quick snapshot of last year's India report. This is what we do is we write to the top 200 listed companies on the Indian Stock Exchange. And our partners in that are CII and WWF. Last year, 57 of the top 200 companies responded to us. This year was 52. And what we find, this is a breakout on how, which sectors do they conform to: materials, industrials, financials, consumers, consumer discretionaries, information technology. What we find is, of the diverse mix of companies, the ones who are reporting, 91% had board-level senior management oversight. So people who are interested in this, and these are issues directly related to a company's energy policy, as Vishal and Pawan have explained to you, is they have, and 89% of the respondents report on their greenhouse gas emissions. And the interesting bit is that people who are responding, 87% of them actually found there was increased opportunity from trying to understand what their impacts of climate change was, their impact on climate change, and understanding the carbon footprint. And only 76% of them saw that there was an added risk to their business. We also rate and rank companies. These are last year the rankings of the top 10 companies in India. We also have another project with CII that's working on, now the next step is asking from companies who are disclosing, so the next step is from disclosure to action, asking them to do active reductions. So this is just mostly on emphasis on measurement and disclosure, ISO 50000. We're doing 2 companies in which they're training on ISO 50000, and we are going to compare the performances before and after. So, I mean, one can, so what we're trying to stress, and also I think to give you the broad picture, is that climate change is nothing but energy security for a nation, as well as if you bring it down, it's for your company. Now, how can we give low carbon energy to the poorest 400 million people of the country? That is the crucial question. And India needs to, without that there is no way of addressing those. And this is what we find is that India's added this PAT program that Pawan spoke of on renewables. It's moving a lot, and There is also in this PAT program, there is the best is on energy efficiency standards, and being a global organization, what we have and what we bring to the table is not just benchmarking, but we can provide best practice examples. For instance, if a company needs to reduce its emissions, show its energy efficiency, how can they do that? We've got the best database of companies across the world, so we can show across different sectors what each company is doing. So rather than, those can be made easily available. What we find is in our Global 500 report last year that there were over 2,200 projects that reported emission reductions, of which half of them were all on energy efficiency. So what I'm again trying to stress is that actually carbon footprinting and all this is nothing but energy measures and energy efficiency. There were others in buildings and etc. And most of them had a payback period of less than 3 years. So, now what I will do is quickly switch over to supply chain. Again, why supply chain? So, 92 investors, which represent $10 trillion, they say that we believe that companies in our portfolio with potential significant carbon emissions in their supply chain should be working with their suppliers to encourage action to deliver cost-effective greenhouse gas emissions. So these are companies that are actively asking these issues. Again, in why supply chain? The Thailand floods, as I said, that how do floods relate to that? Suddenly Thai floods caused Honda to cut US production. In India too, if earlier this year you had booked a Honda car, you found the wait period increase from 1 month to 6 months because the parts weren't coming. If you go to Nehru Place and you build your own computers, you find that the price of hard disk had tripled in that period because hard disks all come from Thailand. Intel had to cut revenue forecasts. So in terms of, this is a snapshot of our supply chain program, and I'd like to give you an example of that. And, I'm not very familiar with your sectors specifically, but how our supply chain program actually evolved is a very interesting story, and it actually evolved with our engagement with Walmart. Now, Walmart, again, as Vishal says that a lot of large companies respond to CDP. Actually, we struggle every year to even explain these issues to the companies. Once they get it, then it's just fantastic. And our supply chain program actually developed out of our engagement with large companies, because earlier we only concentrated on large companies because we think they will make the maximum impact. Once you've got the top companies in each country, they have the maximum emissions, and then if they are conforming to the standards, others will follow suit. So we kept CDP came into existence in UK in 2000, and in India I've started the office. Well, we've been registered this year, but I've been working from last year. So Walmart, it kept writing to them, they kept refusing. Why should we fill your questionnaire? Who are you, etc., etc. Then in 2006, they said, okay, let's fill your questionnaire. Let's see what this whole exercise is all about. So in 2006, they fill our questionnaire. And, for a company like Walmart, does anybody want to take a guess on where their maximum emissions would be from? Anyone, just take a guess.
Warehouse.
Sorry?
Warehouse.
Warehouse, yeah, okay. Anyone else? Transport, yeah. Well, most people believe it's actually logistics. And given the fact that, it's said that at any given point of time, over 5% of the trucks on US highways are Walmart trucks. But when they did their greenhouse gas inventory, they found that maximum emissions were from refrigeration units inside the retail stores. So what they were doing was they were storing deep freeze items like frozen foods, ice creams, etc. on open shelves. So that then required consultants to come in and to tell them that, look, all you need to do is put glass doors on top of that. And in the very first year, they had savings of $100 million. Okay, just by that. So then they said, fantastic, this is great. So can you do this for our vendors as well? So that is how our supply chain program came about. So from Walmart's desire to do this for their vendors. And now CDP is the one that manages their target. Walmart has voluntarily taken a target that they will reduce their emissions by 20 million tons by 2015. and CDP is managing all of that. So of that, then we started building this whole program, and the supply chain issues are, I mean, the image of a supply chain thing is that it's like an iceberg. You know, over 90% of the emissions and what can cause damage is actually below the surface. You don't see it. What you see is only 10% of all your company's operations. So 90%, that needs to be addressed if we really need to address the issue of climate change. And so increasingly, more and more, we started approaching more of these companies. This is a program that we have, and this is the only one that provides us revenue. Our other programs are all free of cost to anyone joining in and so on. So supply chain members, we write to a company's suppliers on behalf of them. And we have 54 members in 2012. Of these, 2,300 are supply chain members. And then on food and beverages, it's 215. These are our members of the supply chain program. So if you or anyone is supplying to any of these companies, you will be receiving a questionnaire from us. Again, CDP on food and beverages. This is specifically on food and beverages. So how does this work? It's a consolidated request that comes, you know, once you respond to CDP, it's supposed to be like the gold standard on responding on climate change. So anybody, an investor or somebody comes to you, you can say that you have filled the CDP questionnaire, and that should satisfy them on all these issues. This is, again, suppliers leading to disclosure and performance. What do they do, and where are they different, their scoring methodologies. We also rate and rank them in terms of the different companies and what they're doing. This is, again, the business model of Unilever. What they're doing, members are increasing their carbon management suppliers scoreboard. So what are the people doing, and so on. There's also an example from Imperial Tobacco and from other groups. And some companies actually, when you as a supplier to them want to go to them to say that you need to increase your costing, they will ask you for your CDP report to see if your energy costs have gone up. So on those bases. So Dell, for instance, rates and ranks. We also provide them ranking of all their vendors, and then they award contracts based on their responses. PepsiCo, again, it's what they're doing through the years. So the whole idea, what I'm trying to stress is that, you know, actually as of now, you don't need to do anything. What Vishal and what Pawan are doing are preparing you for all these issues that will come up. If you are in the supply chain, then you have no choice. But according to the government of India, you don't have to. The most important aspect in all this, and that's where we come in as an NGO, is that companies need to do the right thing. You guys are at the vanguard. Your actions will determine on what happens for our future generations. You know, you can say that, you know, who's to tell whether what Mr. Vasu's firm released earlier didn't cause me to go bald, because, you know, all the water was going into the Yamuna and it was flowing into my tap, and, you know, I was bathing with that and so on. My niece, who is 2 years old, is suffering from severe asthma, and she almost died last year because of that. So it pushed me into rethinking my use of my car and whether I can use more and more public transport, and to see how best we can manage that. The issues are that these are very complex issues at one level, where, you know, you have ministers, you have lawyers, you have diplomats, you have all these people that are engaged and trying to make sense of it. There are climate change deniers, there are climate change advocates, and so on. Issues that we need to, one, do the right thing as people, and two, be prepared if you want to do business globally. And you guys are at the vanguard of trying to sell your products on an international market. On an international market, you need to be seen to be conforming to what are the best practice examples. What we find even amongst the large companies, and I'll give you an example of this, is that a large pharmaceutical company refused to even take my calls, and, you know, their website is fantastic, says they do all this fantastic work on climate change, on CSR. You try and call, you can't find anybody in the EHS division, on the CSR division, in the communications division, and people in their board and numbers don't even know. Then suddenly they receive the request from one of their buyers who they supply in the US. And within 1 week, they have called us and filled the questionnaire and done the whole thing. Okay? There are 2 companies from the same group in India. One of them is fighting with me and saying, how can you rate and rank us? Who do you think you are? You are a puny little NGO and so on. And there's another company from the same group saying, which we technically are not rating and ranking them, but they're saying they want to not just disclose to us, but they're willing to pay us to be rated and ranked by us because their investors demand it. So these are issues that are becoming increasingly important, and they're coming up. And I will just finish with this, is that we are right now working with the Bombay Stock Exchange, and they're coming up with a carbon index, which will be launched at the end of the year. And they will be using CDP data to, and this is for the BSE top 100 companies, but slowly it will percolate down. These are companies that will be rated and ranked on their performance on their carbon and energy efficiency. So I'll end with that, and if there are any other questions and so on, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you. I have, there are a few of these other responders to CDP supply chain last year who were from the textile sector, but I'm afraid I don't know too much about these, so I would, but if there are any other questions on that, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Who, as per you in the textile industries, are the role models who are following these, like, as per your parameters, whatever, like the green emission or the carbon footprint? Who are the role models in the small exporters in name a few, just to know that these people are practicing and can be used as a tool for
in India?
In India.
Well, that, they have just done a study, and maybe you would be rating and ranking them, so maybe perhaps you can.
Companies you can tell the exporters in India, because since here everybody mostly are the exporters, and this association is also about exporters. You could name
one company that, because I have worked and I have seen what they are doing, and they are export houses, Pratibha. In Delhi? No, they are they have a unit in Faridabad. They are in a organic.
But I would add here that Pratibha's index has done a lot of work, not only in the garment industry. They are a total vertically integrated company, right from growing cotton to the garment. They have done in the cotton, in the fields, they have done in their spinning, they have done in weaving, they have done in processing. In fact, in India, probably Daman may know that they have been one of the biggest carbon credit earners during the last couple of years. In the textile, I know. Other like textiles, they were the biggest carbon credit earners. I have visited that factory, so I know.
Okay. What?
One name or there?
Well, at least, I have seen quite a few units, but because to ask for a role model only can be one. So
that means a lot of work has to be done.
Well,
so many projects just
as Daman is telling you, that basically we react only when we are pushed to do that. And this, and he rightly pointed out that you have a desert here till 2020. You need not do anything this time. And people will wake up only a month before 2020 when the law will take its course and they'll start pushing. So you see the sum up of this is that there is a social responsibility to see that the environment is clean. And the second is that as they all pointed out to you, all the experts pointed out to you, that this is beneficial to you also. I mean, you are doing good to yourself and you are getting...
Sir, I am a housewife also, and I know that I have to manage my house. If there are so many expenses and the kind of malls that are mushrooming to meet the demands of my children, I need to have a budget in my house. I need to have a control in my house. That is what I see. We have been living in luxury as for now. Our exporters have been living in the luxury of water, of electricity, everything. They're using at their own usage, at their own, demand and at their own luxury. But now when you see everything is
in the short supply,
cut short. So everybody has to follow that kind of a budgeting.
Very true, yeah.
I'm not sure this, I think it's a cutthroat business.
Excuse me, since the entire program is getting video recorded, please identify yourself and your company so that...
I do not belong to a company. My professional education has been in textiles. I've done my master's in textiles from NIFT. And I worked with the industry in the home sector for last 8 years. And for last 4 years, I've been working as an academician, as an assistant professor at Institute of Climate Management.
Name, please.
Actually, people like you are who are thinking for everybody, because most of us are only working from day to day, you know, saving money, that in case I don't sort of, at the moment is that if you can throw your water outside or not do your normal functioning, you save money. But in the long term, you are endangering the life of so many other people. So basically, people like NGOs and experts like this and people like you are the one who can put guidelines and see that eventually everybody is going to benefit if we follow them.
Go back to your own roots. We Indians have always been into conservation. We've never been into, like, living life full size. If you see right from the beginning, the kind of our ancestors have been, we have built everything on sustainability. Everything. Like, for example, a cooler where you drink your water, it could be destroyed and again you could make it and drink water. But nowadays we use plastics, we use stuff like that. So, I mean, we have to go back to our roots to see where we are standing. I mean, you can live in luxury all the time, but then you have to pay for the luxury also. I mean, the word
one of the problems, one of the issues that I see and I notice amongst us and our classes now is, for the last 10 years we believe that it's our time to shine in the sun. We have to make good. This is the time, and we're going reckless in a direction that, yes, we have been very conscious of the environment, but now do you see anything around you? I mean, there's only garbage everywhere. So, those are issues of us.
Can we Honda City, Mercedes throwing santara, kachlika out of their cars. I mean,
yeah.
Nothing.
But is that?
Person has maybe money.
But if we can just come back to the topic at hand, I mean, just something. Sorry.
We are dilating.
Yes.
See, if I have correctly heard you, you have been impressing one point on this house, that you need not do anything now. Wait for another 5-10 years, and you'll.
No, sir, no.
Just a minute. Talking of footprints, carbon footprints, and all those environmental problems, you have been saying to this house that you need not wait for 2020.
I have been saying, sir.
Before Mr. Mehta, you respond to that question. My submission is that when we talk of environment protection and all that, at the same time we say energy conservation. In fact, both these things are directly related. When we conserve energy, as you were telling me, we are automatically helping the environment.
Sir, I apologize.
Number two.
Yeah. Can I say on your behalf?
Yeah. Another thing, you being an NGO, you have an approach and access to certain records of the governments, all that. In fact, my mind has been tinkering. You have so much of forest fires in big countries like US. The forest fires, which continues for days together unless it gets extinguished by itself. Remember. So much of greenhouse gases you are producing directly. And whereas small countries like Bangladesh or India, this thing you are impressing upon the environmental protection and all that.
Sir,
As an NGO,
yes.
Have you ever
Can you wrap up? Yeah. Can you wrap up?
Can I answer your first one then?
Please.
I think it was his sarcastic way of saying it, that the government is giving you a free hand till 2020. He doesn't mean that you should not do anything. Am I right?
Yes, sir. This is exactly, I have failed. I apologize, I failed. The point is that the government says you don't have to do anything. But when your buyers want it, And when there is the way to do it, and it can give you immediate benefits yourself if you were to do this, that was my point. The point is that there is no legal regulatory requirement for you to do anything.
Yeah.
Legal requirements at the moment.
This is
But
what.
for the garment export industry, it is going to be an issue of survival in the next couple of 3 years.
Kesarji,
The buyers are going to insist.
Kesarji, this is what the Daman was trying to say, that though there is no legal requirement, but it is social responsibility and preparation for what is going to happen there. If you wake up only a month before 2020, you will be left behind, and there are people who are smart enough, they will be able to overtake you and do better than that. So it pays to be sort of doing, thinking of all the proactive. Right. And second part, I think you might be able to answer. You didn't ignite the fire, no?
No, I didn't write that. Yes.
Mr. Das wants to say something. Yes.
Okay.
I have already started asking for involvement. What are your contribution? What all you have done?
Ji, sir.
And see, what are your future, like, are you mapping it? Yes
Yeah.
or no? And what targets you
Yeah.
set? And what are you
See, those questions, as I mentioned at the beginning, that the US government does not have a target, but companies have taken on targets. Companies need to act. And those targets, as Pawan and Vishal also mentioned, will get pushed on to you because you are supplying it.
Yeah.
Right? So it is going to happen. The government can keep saying you don't have to do anything.
Just to tell you a slightly thing away from pollution, for example, most of the government exporters will agree with you that you see there's something known as compliance. I don't think there's any government servant here. You see, when the government servant comes, there's a package ready for him, he will take away and go away. But whereas the compliance, you genuinely have to make effort to see that the things which they want are done. So this is something similar. You have to think ahead and be ready when the requirement comes.
Sir, those of you many of you might be knowing that the buyers like H&M are now taking a monthly statement from their vendors on certain parameters. They are not as exhaustive as Vishal has covered for the OGTC, but it has got fairly large number of parameters where they have to report every month their status in terms of environment. That is H&M. C&A has also started, as you might have heard Chamberlain saying that yesterday. Marks and Spencer has said by 2014 they are going to be carbon neutral. So if they don't produce anything, so how can they be carbon neutral? They will be carbon neutral only if they source from the people who are carbon neutral, and they are sourcing from you. So you have to become carbon neutral according to M&S. It may get extended to a couple of years, as Daman is saying, but that flexibility of time which is available, that is, I will say, mercy of the environment.
Preparatory time, that is
a mercy of the environment. One should not take it lightly. Start thinking about it. Start working on it in your homes, as the lady says, but right in your factories, right in your premises, right under your nose. You would have seen in your factories the minor issues which they have brought out. That people keep on their fans on, people keep their ACs on. I also have read about in the environment that China made a regulation and statutory law that nobody can run air conditioner less than 26 degrees centigrade. So imagine the saving in energy from 22 to 26. I mean, these are the steps which you don't need Einstein to tell you. These are the ones which one can take oneself. You would see in the market people selling quilts for AC quilts. You run AC at a lower temperature and use a quilt. I mean, that is the kind of attitude we have. But if you go towards understanding the environment and understanding the necessity, then you will start working on it. Sorry.
No problem, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kesar. If there are no more questions, it is my pleasant duty now to thank Vishalji, Pavanji, and please.
As in the beginning, sir told that he sent his questionnaire to the top 200 companies of Sensex, and he got the feedback from 52 or 57 companies. So can we get the same kind of questionnaire as a small skill industry?
Sure, yeah, the same questionnaire, it's on our website. I can share our website. You can go there, you can register, and you can fill the questionnaire.
So at least we can measure ourselves.
Absolutely, and we can provide you that those details. You can see what, and you can also see the responses of other companies. We put everything online. We believe in full disclosure, and our task is actually, the technical calculations and the nitty-gritties of what your boiler and your compressor are doing is people like Vishal and Pawan would do. Our task is that we need to provide the best and the most authentic information on climate change to everybody and across the world so it can be shared. We know who's doing the best. We can rate and rank them, and we can share all those.
How can you say it is authentic?
Well, one is...
Sending the questionnaire.
Yes.
Getting the reply. Has it been audited?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting point, and I'd just like to say that we are an NGO, so we cannot insist on a company assuring or verifying their data. But
डॉक्टर के पास जाओगे उसको अपनी बीमारी नहीं बताओगे तो डॉक्टर क्या करेगा? Data is being provided by you. If you don't give the data, what can someone do?
No, but I can request you to share the data, but for instance, Tata Power putting their name on a report, we believe will not lie about it. Secondly, if they want to be rated and ranked, we have a point that if they verify and assure the data, they get better marks.
Yeah.
So the top companies are verified and assured. We cannot insist that you verify, but if you verify, you will get better scores. So through the rating and ranking, he has mentioned.
OGTC companies, all the data has been authenticated and verified.